Hey, it's Keith Tomasek. Welcome back to the Performers Podcast. I've been busy. I've been away. I have to be honest. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I was in India for a little while. Then I was in Winnipeg just a while ago saw a great performance at the Prairie Theatre Exchange. I was fortunate to meet with some people in the arts community there and did a workshop all about email marketing. So thanks to everyone at the PTE, Carmen especially, for making that happen. I did a great podcast interview with Rodrigo Belifus from Shakespeare in the Ruins. Rodrigo was also at the Stratford Festival for a few years. That's coming up. But today I've got Bruce Dow for you. Bruce Dow, Stratford, Broadway, Toronto icon. And he opens up about being on Broadway in the midst of a production, Diana, and having to just shut down. How they found out about it, what he did when they found out about it, the fact that he has no income right now as an actor, which is, we're all there, right? It's crazy times. So I hope you're doing well wherever you are. And you're not alone. I'm alone, and I'm with you because I'm in my basement self-isolating. After all the travel I did, I'm keeping away from people, and anyway, here we are together. I'm happy you're listening. Bruce is happy you're listening. And I'll tell you, Bruce's story is inspiring. So you're going to hear our conversation about being on Broadway, coming home, but listen to the whole chat because Bruce also talks about how he's changed what he eats. And if you heard Bruce on our podcast 4 years ago, you'll hear that he had some big issues with his health that have mostly been resolved. Thanks to a change in what he eats and how he manages his life. So a really inspiring podcast, particularly at these times. It's tough, but we have to stick together and share our stories. So thanks very much. I really appreciate your listening to this. Here comes my chat with Bruce Dow. I just heads up, Bruce is on Skype from his home, so it's not the best audio quality. It's definitely better if you listen with earbuds or headphones than if you play it out loud. Anyway, here comes my conversation with Bruce Dow. So you've appeared on Broadway several times, including your role as King Herod in the revival of Jesus Christ Superstar, which of course was nominated for a Tony Award. And Bruce, is Broadway your home away from home? Is that how it feels?
Yes and no. I mean, it's right now it may be if when it opens up again, it may be my home for a while, and I may be looking at moving down there more permanently, just simply because there's work, or there was work. Nobody knows what's happening right now. Diana's my fifth featured role on Broadway over a long period of time, but I've been very lucky to sort of dip my toe in and come out, and so I'm exploring whether I'm going to just, go down there and do that, or if I'm going to do something entirely different. Everything is very much in flux, and it's odd, but this whole coronavirus thing has in some ways thrown it more into flux, but also at the same time, it's given me a chance to pause and reflect and breathe, which is also very welcome in a sort of weird way.
No, I totally get it. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you remember where you were? So Thursday, March 19th, that's when Governor Cuomo said Broadway shut down. Tell me where you were when you got the news and what your first thoughts were.
We were I'm going to take you to Wednesday, March 12th first.
Ooh, wow.
We rehearsed the show for a month. We were in rehearsals 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week, standard Broadway rehearsals. Then we moved into the theater, and we had 2 weeks of basically 12 hours a day rehearsals, 6 days a week, which is standard for tech rehearsals. Usually 10 out of 12s or 8 out of 12s, but it means you're there from noon until 11 p.m. or, you don't get home till midnight. You don't get into bed till 1 o'clock. It makes it a long day. So we had a month of those. Then we had started previews, which means we rehearse for 4.5, 5 hours in the afternoon, with breaks included. Then we get a dinner break and we do a show at night for a live audience. Then the creative team watches the show with the audience and goes, they're not getting that joke, or that song isn't landing the way we want, or is that scene really telling the story? I didn't expect that reaction. The next day we come in, we do another 4 or 5 hours of rehearsal in the afternoon, have a dinner break, and do the show again in front of a live audience. So we were in the middle of that process. We'd done a week and a half of previews. So the Wednesday before the Thursday, we'd come in for rehearsal. And we were rehearsing, and people were buzzing about they might be shutting Broadway down. And you get the cross section. You get older members of the cast and crew who are genuinely concerned. This is a virus that would directly affect them. If they got sick, it could be very dangerous. Mm-hmm. Then there's me, who's sort of like, I was in New York for 9/11. I've lived through SARS and Zika and H1N1.
That's funny because SARS was big in Toronto. People don't remember, but lots of people died in Toronto. And then you were at September 11th, you were on Broadway, shut down. The difference was, though, Broadway shut down for I think it was 3 days. And but it hit bottom right away very quickly. And then 3 days later, they opened up. And even the government...
They opened up, but it still took ages for audiences to trust to come back to New York to see shows. Yeah. So, I mean, even though it was a shorter break, it was still financially really hard on the whole system. Mm-hmm. And Broadway is such a lifeblood for the city of New York. It brings in so many tourists.
Well, the government actually bought Broadway tickets for a period of time after September 11th to give away to patrons who were spending money at other businesses. Yeah, exactly, to keep it open. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens. And some shows never came, even with just a 3-day break. There were about 3 or 4 shows on Broadway at that time that didn't even come back. It was brutal.
So anyway, having been through all those things, I was like, well, yeah, it'll be rough, but we'll get through it. And I am an American. I love my American brothers and sisters, but they do have a penchant for panic, and which is different from our experience in Canada. We tend to get a bit more stoic.
Yes, I'll agree with you there. Yeah, that's fine.
We tend to go, I better do something sensible. Mm-hmm. Americans tend to go, oh my God, it's the zombie apocalypse. Right. Now, since then, I've been very much surprised with the reaction of Torontonians in terms of, there's no toilet paper.
It's ridiculous.
Are you crazy? Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, so we've got some people who are legitimately concerned, people like me who are bitter and jaded and not concerned, and then we have a bunch of young members of the company who are, it's the zombie apocalypse. And so we came in the next day, Thursday, and we started rehearsal with our director talking to us, saying, beautiful things about how much he loves this company and loves working with us. And it's Christopher Ashley who created Come From Away. Come From Away,
and artistic director at La Jolla. Where you were part of the La Jolla, the show ran at La Jolla for a bit too, right?
Last season we ran there in January. So it's the same creative team from Come From Away. Kelly Devine, choreographer, Ian Eisendrath, musical director, supervisor. And it's the writers behind Memphis. So it's Joe DiPietro, who's won multiple Tony Awards for his work as a book writer and lyricist on Broadway. And David Bryan is the composer who won the Tony Award for Memphis, but is also the keyboard player for Bon Jovi. Anyway, so they give us a beautiful speech, and we were kind of like, why is he giving us this speech? And then we went back to rehearse things. And we knew that the producers from the Broadway League were in discussion and waiting to hear what was happening. And everybody was waiting to hear what the governor was going to do. And then there was we took a 5-minute break when simultaneously across everybody's Twitter feed came the announcement Broadway is shutting down.
Oh, no. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And so everybody was quiet about it. Nobody said anything. And then our break was over, and we went, okay, we know what's happened. Our producer will be here shortly. We'll have a talk. Anyway, in the next 10 minutes, let's just rework this moment because we've got the time and we're all on stage and we got the crew. So we did a little more work. And then our producer came in, Beth. She's amazing. She really believes in the piece. She loves this piece. It's a producer's job is really hard, as you know. Mm-hmm. But it's really rare that you get a really nice, caring, generous producer. And she said, look, Broadway is shutting down. The governor's going to announce that he's shutting down large groups of people. We don't know what this means. And what was beautiful is she was so open and caring and going, I know you're going to have a lot of questions, but a lot of them I'm not going to be able to answer because we don't know yet.
No one knew anything, yeah.
So we'll have 5 weeks of break, of which the last week of the break should be rehearsals. I mean, it's
of course, right? You guys got to get back on your feet. Yeah.
We got to get back on our feet. Plus, they still want to make changes to the show.
Sure.
So we've got to implement those.
Wow. So what
And
do you now? Just let me just have my first reaction.
yeah,
So you're renting a place in Manhattan. How do you
yep.
are you currently paying for that place? Like, how did you settle all?
Mhm.
Because you left pretty quick. You got out pretty quick.
I left that day.
Wow.
I sort of had a similar. I left the day after 9/11, and I left that day just because I looked at airfares, and at that point they were really cheap. Now, of course, they've all been jacked up,
Right.
but at the time, I got a one-way ticket for under $200,
Beautiful. Yeah.
and to fly comfort class because I needed a cocktail. I was going to sit there in plastic world and.
And how'd you deal with your affairs? Like, are you paying rent right now for a place in
I am
Manhattan?
paying rent for a place in Manhattan, and I've got a very generous roommate who's sort of floating me for a while here in Toronto, whom I'm very grateful for, but whom I intend to pay back for this time because
Yeah.
it's rent.
Oh, I didn't even. I just assumed you had a place to land in Toronto and stay, but no.
No, I'm now renting in two cities with no income.
Oh, nice. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
God.
yeah. No, the Broadway League and Actors Equity again have been working together so beautifully on this. And it involves the state government, the city government, the Broadway League, which is the League of Broadway Producers, aside from Disney. I'm sure they're doing their own thing. And Actors Equity Association are all in discussions as to who is responsible for paying us. Can we get paid? Do we qualify for unemployment? How long will this period go on? Will our contract still be valid?
Of course. Yeah.
Because generally after 6 weeks, a production is considered shut down, and then you have to renegotiate contracts.
Wow.
I don't know if that will pan out because this is this is an act of God or some extreme something.
Yeah, force majeure. Yeah, and it's a good point. They might want to renew the contract because you're going to be starting, as you experienced after September 11th, the houses are going to be slow to kick in. I mean, we don't know, but obviously it's in a producer's interest to renegotiate a contract. It's so complicated, eh?
It's very complicated, and our producer was. I mean, she said, and it makes perfect sense. There's no point right now pumping money into a show to hope people come and see it when nobody's going to come and see it. Any show. And so hopefully, when Broadway comes back, there will then be money to pump into advertising to get people to come. But again, after SARS, it took Toronto 2 years to come back.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of deaths in Toronto. And incidentally, I just read that during the 1918-1919 flu epidemic, which was horrendous, Broadway didn't close. So let me ask you this. So how do you find peace of mind now? As you said, you're renting in two cities and no income. What are you doing to find peace of mind?
Well, I'm very good about panicking about my own life, my own experiences. But in terms of something like this, I feel oddly at peace that I can't do anything. So there's no point in my running in circles, screaming and chasing,
Right.
Oh my God, there's no toilet paper. I'll get in the shower and wash my ass if it's that bad. You know what I mean?
Hey, how did you talk about getting the role in the first place? How, as you said, Christopher Ashley, Come From Away, big, and the lyricist and the music. How did you get exciting?
I've been very lucky. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar was my second time at the La Jolla Playhouse. The first time was Jane Eyre about a decade plus before. And Chris wasn't the artistic director for Jane Eyre, but he was during the period that Jesus Christ Superstar went down there from Stratford. So I'd met him down there. He'd seen my work. I had just come in to audition for the Toronto company for Come From Away. And we had a great time. It was a great audition. Didn't get it. That happens. And then I heard they were doing Diana, and part of me went, "Say what? A musical about Princess Diana?" And then I just went. Chris is somebody I've known by association, simply to say hello in the hallway or in passing. But he has such a gentle, generous, thoughtful vibe about him that I just went, this is somebody I'd love to work with. And when I saw that Kelly Devine was choreographing, she was choreographing Come From Away as well, for which she won the Olivier Award. But Kelly Devine had choreographed Cabaret at Stratford. So she and I knew each other. And Ian Eisendrath, the music supervisor, is just hilarious. And we started laughing the minute I went in for my Come From Away audition. We had a great time. But when I saw it was the three of them, I went, well, I'll fly down to New York for a day if they'll see me. And they did. And I went in and I read for 3 different parts. and sang three different.
Who got you that appointment? Your agent, or how did that?
Kind of combo platter. But
Okay.
but well, no, I mean it was me personally. I wrote to people I know at La Jolla Playhouse. I wrote to Chris's assistant and went, "Does Chris think there's anything in this for me? Because I'll fly down for an audition." What does he think? Well,
Good.
yeah, maybe. Bloop, bloop, bloop. And then we contacted them through my agent. Once I knew there might be something he'd like to see me, then we sent it to my agent to the casting director and went, Chris would like to see Bruce for whatever. So blah, blah, blah. So I flew down. I read for 2 or 3 roles. Then they gave me another role to read for, like go out in the hallway for 5 minutes, learn this, come back in. I did that and we had a great time and I left. And I missed the dance call, which was in my favor because my knees are bad now and I don't really dance anymore. But as I was in the train going back to Newark to fly out, I got a call going, Kelly could see you to dance right now. And it's like, I can't, I'm leaving town. But I got a call the next day saying they want me to be in it, but they don't know what.
Wow.
And I went, that's incredibly flattering. And sure, I'm down for that. Let's see what happens. And so I drove from Toronto to La Jolla, knowing I had signs. It's a long drive. It was fun, though. And I got there on the first day of rehearsal. I was handed the script and I found out who I was playing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. So the character you play, Paul Burrell, he was a former footman to Queen Elizabeth and then later the famous butler to Diana. Is this your first time playing someone who's actually alive?
This is my first time playing someone who's actually alive.
It's got to be a bit odd, or did you even think about that?
It's super odd.
Okay.
Super odd. It's super odd, and it's. I won't say that Mr. Burrell and I have been in any contact that is substantial. We haven't, but we have been in contact, and I simply wrote to him and said. I know your story. His personal story is astounding.
He was married, wasn't he?
He was married with 2 sons. He later came out as gay, married his husband, and he worked for the royal family since he was very young. Worked for Queen Elizabeth, as you said, then worked for Diana through all of the tough times, and then was let go from the royal employment. That's a whole nother story that our story doesn't get into and I don't get into, but he got in touch and I wrote back and said, look, I know your story as a gay man myself. It's meant a lot to follow your story. I lived through that whole period. I am actually playing you and, I will do my best to represent you as the authors will let me. But also that I can't have any communication with you. We're not, and the authors have been so full of integrity about trying to tell the story honestly without any villains, without any blame, without taking sides. Everything that happens in our stories is highly heightened because it's musical and it's rock and roll. But at the same time, everything that happens in our show actually happened. Whether it happened exactly that way or not is not the thing. But the event, the interactions, what was communicated is well documented. So it's really weird to be playing a real live person and also not be able to access them and go, "Can you tell me your story?" And I'm also a featured role in the show. It's not the Paul Burrell story. Maybe that's the next musical I get them to write.
Well, you heard he was Diana's confidant. Like, wasn't he just her real confidant? The only person in this royal system that she actually trusted. That's what I believe. Yeah.
He was the one when she was in her darkest periods of bulimia. He would go to the royal kitchens and have them make bowls and bowls of custard so she could eat and vomit it and it wouldn't hurt her. So, incredibly intimate relationship, although non-sexual intimate, a different kind of intimacy.
Yeah. So just on an aside, one more thing outside of the show, I know there are these people who are huge Diana fans who just have disdain for Camilla and Charles. Have you bumped into those people at all? Had to deal with them?
I haven't personally.
No, they're not. They're not protesting outside or anything.
No, nobody's I sort of expected some protesting or something, but there really hasn't been. And when you look at the story, I mean, Camilla and Charles were in love, but they couldn't get married because she wasn't a virgin, which is ludicrous in our day and age. And this is only 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But at the same time to go, this is the woman he wants to marry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have her because we can't be entirely sure that the bloodline is the king's. And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so they had to find somebody else. So between Charles and Camilla, they found Diana. And they said she'd be a good person to fit in that slot. And, that's kind of Machiavellian on one hand, but on the other hand, it's practical.
Yeah, you're being very pragmatic. It's tragic is what it is, Bruce. I think tragic is
I mean, it's tragic, certainly, but also you can't say, I mean, she was 19 years old. So how much could she, I mean, the brain is not fully formed at the age of 19. So how could she possibly comprehend that she was being hired to be a figurehead?
Right. But the drama here and
it's Shakespearean, and also it's Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Well, yeah. And as you said, it's not, it was not that long ago in our history. And of course, everything. What do you think about the whole, you think is the whole Meghan Markle situation going to get young people interested in the Diana situation, you think? Is that?
I don't know if they'll make the leap to Diana. That will be interesting. I mean, as a woman of color in that position, doing that sort of thing, them taking control of their lives, Harry saying, "This is what killed my mother, so I'm getting my family out of it," I think is glorious. If they take the step to go, "Oh, it kills your mother, let's find out about that," then that will help build our audiences.
Yeah, well, and Diana, wasn't she one of the first people to get the word obey, like in the upper echelons of society when she took that out of the wedding vows? I think that was also a huge, big moment in society.
I don't know that specifically, but
I read that too. Yeah. Quite an iconic character for so much of society.
For so many reasons. Yeah. And what she did with her, she was the first person to shake hands in a photograph with a person with full-blown AIDS. That was the period when I won't share a glass with somebody who might be gay, who might have AIDS. I'm not going to, people were isolating family members who were gay because we didn't know, and there were evidently doctors in the hospital at that time who would not treat or touch those patients. And they already knew it wasn't transmitted through touch. Yeah. And they already knew it, and she was the first one to go in and go, sure.
Yeah. I can't wait to get out. Like I told you, when my sister-in-law was on her way to La Jolla, I'm like, you have to go see Bruce. You have to go see Diana. She came back with her daughter. They both loved it. And anyway, so I'm excited. I was supposed to be in New York today, the day we're recording, speaking at a big conference for arts marketing. And of course it was canceled too. I know. In the Village, I was so excited. I was going to go see you, go see some comedy down at the Comedy Cellar in the Village. Anyway, it was all wonderful. God.
It's so weird. It's all just on hiatus. And I'm hoping to be back in 4 to 5 weeks, but it might be longer.
My sense is it's going to be a bit longer, but who knows? But I want to talk a bit more about you, because you were on this podcast 4 years ago, and you talked about your health situation.
Was it that long ago?
It was 4 years ago, yeah. And you talked about your health situation, and I like my listeners know, and I think I mentioned it to you, I've got Crohn's disease, and I manage my disease through my diet. I've only had one surgery. I got the disease when I was 16. There's a great podcast episode with Ray Cronice and Juliana Heaver on the Performers podcast. Ray's the guy who basically saved Penn Jillette and Kevin Smith, the director, and all kinds of other folks through diet, I might add. So I've heard, because you had a weight problem, and did that lead into a diabetes problem as well?
Yeah, no. I mean, I had a wonderful doctor in Stratford who was great for all things. But sort of halfway through my time there, I was recovering from anorexia and bulimia, and in that process, I put on a ton of weight, which was actually in a way very mentally healthy for me, because I learned that the fear of weight that I had was I was still myself, and I was still sexy and beautiful, and I was learning all that stuff. And it
Sexy.
wasn't
Come on. I
something-
saw you on the cover of Now
Yeah,
magazine
baby.
naked. That was the best.
But that was a big journey for me to go.
I bet.
When I was super skinny, I thought I had pictures of myself where I was super skinny, and I thought at that time I was as big as I was when I was at Stratford.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to have that sort of body dysmorphia wake up, and so healing. But I'd go to see my doctor, and he'd say, your blood sugar's a little high. I went, oh, okay. So, well, your blood sugar's a little high. Okay, great. What does that mean? And that just sort of continued for a long time until I moved back to Toronto, and my new doctor went, you have diabetes.
Wow.
And I went, oh. So I started out by going vegan, and it was just like, I have to do something, set boundaries for myself. So I set huge boundaries, and I loved it. And it was great. And I lost a crap ton of weight really fast and ate like crazy. But then the blood sugar would go up and go down, go up and go down. And then I went back to eating normal North American food, and it wasn't working. And then I was talking to my therapist, who had said that there's this doctor in town, Dr. Fung, who sort of runs the ketogenic diet, which has now turned into keto and intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already done every freaking fad diet there is to do, which always offends me when somebody comes up to a fat person and goes, oh my God, you should join my gym. It's amazing. Or I've been doing this new program, eating only lentils. You should try it. It's like, I've already tried it.
Yeah.
Go kiss your ass. Anyway,
Okay.
so she suggested this, and I went, oh, and I looked into it. I went, well, if sugar is the problem, get rid of all forms of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it was horrifying, and it took me kind of 2.5 years to go on it, fall off it, go on it, get off it, go seriously on it, but kind of there's a dirty keto that you can do. And then to finally get on it in a way that's healthy and wonderful for me. And
that's how your blood sugar is now. How's the diabetes?
It's gone.
I love that. I love that you say that. And
Gone.
the diet that I'm on, which is called the specific carbohydrate diet, I will eat fruit, but I don't have any kind of added sugar or I don't eat any processed foods either. And I'm doing no rice, no potatoes, no wheat. And I've been doing it for almost 30 years. So I don't even have an app. Like, my son's 13. We gave my birthday cake, and people are like, oh, don't you want some cake? And I'm like, it's the furthest, not at all. So for people that are trying to come to terms with changing their lives and getting rid of sugar and flour, you can get there. And once you get past that point, you really don't feel that craving anymore. And you realize how much of what we eat is just social. We're not fueling our bodies. It's just a social thing. And so I'm always with people eating, and sometimes I'll have a meeting at lunch and I'm just going to have a cup of tea because like you, I do the intermittent fasting. So maybe I'll have had a really big breakfast and I don't need to eat for lunch. And yeah, it's amazing when you really start to pay attention to your diet. Like I'm, knock wood, super healthy with Crohn's disease, no medicine because of my diet. So I'm glad that you found a way too.
Well, and it's also, it's having done every fad diet, this isn't a diet.
Right.
And
exactly.
It's also for me an act of self-care, because I find my emotional stability is so much better. I still take my medication for my bipolar 2, but my mental stability, my mental clarity is so much better when I'm following keto.
Okay.
I'm at the age I am, and I've moved back to New York, and I'm sharing a 3-bedroom apartment with one person I know and 2 strangers, and I'm on the subway, and there's this weird virus going around and whatever. But if I eat well, I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah, of course. You eat, here's the thing. So are you like me? No wheat, no rice, no potatoes?
No wheat, no rice, no potato. I mean, obviously no sugar, no wheat, no rice, no potatoes. Basically as low carbohydrate as I can go. Yeah.
Do you do cauliflower?
Yeah, cauliflower is very low carb.
Cauliflower is my killer food, and I eat cauliflower every day. I'll often eat it for breakfast, and I got on onto it years ago because it's super low glycemic, and it's also kind of like oatmeal, which I can't eat, in the sense that cauliflower slowly releases energy. So, and when I spoke to Ray Cronies, the guy who worked with Penn Jillette and Kevin Smith, and he's like, I said, I eat a fair amount of cauliflower. He goes, Keith, if you think you eat a lot of cauliflower, you have no idea. He said he eats so much cauliflower, the average person wouldn't believe it. So I've upped it. Like I can actually take a big thing of cauliflower, chop it up, stick it in the oven with a bit of oil and some salt. Ray would say I was crazy to put the oil on, but I'll put a touch of oil, touch of salt, and then eat the whole thing. No problem. And it's so good and good for you.
Cabbage is my...
Cabbage?
Like coleslaw, shredded cabbage.
Yeah.
It's my pasta. It goes under sauce. It's my rice. It goes under curry. It's...
That's a great idea.
I love cauliflower. I get overwhelmed with the flavor of it after a while.
When you do the cabbage thing, do you like fry it up to warm it up a little bit, or what do you do with it?
There's a great, very often I'll do it cold, and you pour hot spaghetti sauce over it. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
Tomatoes and avocados. Lots of avocados, lots of cucumber, lots of tomatoes.
I'm so glad you said avocado, because I eat a ton. Sometimes I have an avocado or two a day, and I'm not a heavy guy. I mean, part of that is because of the Crohn's disease and absorption. But people are like, "Oh, aren't they supposed to be fat?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's good fat. You need fat, and avocados are
the
great."
Only thing we need fat, and what we've been doing instead of fat is substituting sugar.
That's right.
If you look at no fat strawberry yogurt at the grocery store, has like 16, 20, 25 grams of sugar in it. It's ridiculous.
Hey, let's, you mentioned lifestyle changes. The other thing that's happened, congratulations, is I heard you're engaged to be married. Is that true?
That's true.
Congratulations.
That's true. Yeah, that's been a long journey. I'm blissfully happy, but no, I'm engaged, and we're going to get married in the next couple of years, and not in the business, and sensible, crazy, weird, wacky, a person of faith, which is different for me because I sort of went through my faith period to being agnostic, to being full on angry atheist, to being okay with being an atheist, then going, but life is too weird not to have some kind of way to explain it.
So you're married to a fellow who is a man of faith, and does that mean it takes time every week, like out of his life?
Oh no, it's part of every day and his own thing, and I mean he's in the medical profession, and I don't want to get into too many details.
No, of course.
That's his life, and you can interview him sometime because it would be fascinating. And he'll say things that trigger me like crazy on a lot of issues, and then at the same time I go, oh, but that comes from him very naturally and gently and honestly, and I have no argument with it. It's a very, being around him is a very profound experience for me. And I don't know, I'm being so cagey about it. There's no reason to be. He's a registered nurse, a registered psych nurse, but he's also doing now a double master's, one in Masters of Divinity and a Master of Pastoral Studies that will lead to a psychotherapy certification. So what he wants to do is trauma care, and of course I've got a fire truck going by. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's doing trauma care, spiritually based trauma care psychotherapy is what he wants to get into, which is just like an overwhelming concept of what a genuinely humane experience to have. So how can you? I certainly don't argue with it. I
can't argue. That talk about the selfless pursuit. And by the way, Bruce, I'll tell you, I did my master's degree as an adult. And it was hard on the marriage. I'm just going to tell you that. So your fellow, I keep saying fellow, he's working very, very hard. And for the love of whatever he believes in, you just got to be there 100%.
You got to be there. And we're in different cities, and we're, once he graduates, then we'll go figure out how to do a big Italian wedding, which scares the crap.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. It's going through that master's. And I wanted to do a PhD, and my wife's like, you're done.
Really?
Oh, I'm not even kidding. It was hard. It's hard. And we were raising our young son at the time. It was hard. All right, we're going to wrap up. But before we do, I want to talk about last summer. You were at the Festival Players of Prince Edward County,
Yeah.
like 2.5 hours from Toronto. Beautiful island. I used to visit there all the time when I lived in Toronto. And you got to direct some work. You got to be you were the director of the Academy for Young Actors, training the young guys. Is that right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So the two interesting things, I'll ask you, not your first time directing or the first time teaching young people, but working in that remote island with all these young people, what did you learn about yourself while you were teaching others?
Oh, well, teaching is what I love doing more than anything, even more than like Broadway and the acting thing, which some people are surprised by, but that's where I really would love to end up.
Mm-hmm.
What I learn is how little I know, or what I actually do know, but how to articulate it and how to make it clear for someone else. It's that's where I get really excited when I'm going, okay, this is the concept. How do I describe this?
Mm-hmm.
You are also caretaker, nurturer, supporter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a role I love, and it's one I think I'm good at.
Oh, way to go! Congrats. It's interesting how we find things later in life, right?
Oh, totally.
So just to wrap up, I'm curious. So obviously we're going to keep our eyes open for Broadway reopening, and Diana will come out and see you whenever the time is right. I got luckily WestJet refunded my flight with no fees or anything. So that was good. So I'll be in New York again. I'll come see you for sure. What about, how are you doing in the meantime? I guess you just kind of hunker down and you can't really make any commitments here on work-wise. So are you going to do a cabaret or anything? Or I guess we can't. We're not even allowed. Listen to me. That. We're not even allowed to, I guess, right?
No. The industry shut down here as well. And
what am I thinking? Yeah.
So I'm kind of, I have a 5-story walk-up for my apartment in New York. And the theater has no elevator. So it's a 5-story walk-up to the dressing room. So what I don't want to do is get out of shape in however many weeks this takes. So I'm going to keep trying to stay physical. But at the same time, it's also a great relief to have, a couple of weeks off to just rest, because it's an intense process rehearsing a new show for 4 weeks, then 2 weeks of tech, then 4 weeks of previews and rehearsals. It's a lot. So I'm not unwelcome to the rest.
Well, I like your headspace. It sounds like you're in a great headspace. I know your body's in a great space. So congrats on so many different levels, Bruce.
No, I'm feeling very blessed on a lot of levels. And so it's always lovely to talk to you, Keith. And we will do it again, I'm sure, at some point.
That's Mr. Bruce Dow, live from his home in Toronto. The show is Diana. The website is thedianamusical.com, thedianamusical.com at the Longacre Theatre on Broadway. As I record this, the show is scheduled to resume April 13th, like all Broadway shows. In Toronto, Mirvish Productions are following the same timeline. The Stratford Festival, they've canceled productions until May 3rd, and the Shaw Festival is scheduled to resume performances on May 1st. There you go. That's a little update. Here's something I want you to think about. I love what Raoul Beneja posted on Facebook. Raoul, incidentally, great Canadian actor, guest on the podcast, and it's worth checking out. Raoul talks about traveling the world with his one-man Hamlet show. Raoul posted, spend 20% of your time on news, only 20% on news, 80% with art. So, those coffee table books you have lying around? I've got a great book, Sammy Davis Jr.'s Photographs. He always carried a camera with him. I love opening that book up. Maybe your favorite tunes. Maybe get one of the old movies you have or an old DVD and plug that in, or find something on Netflix that's pretty cool. 80% art, 20% news, because we have to relieve that anxiety we're all feeling right now. And it's a collective thing, right? It's not just an individual thing. You can't escape it. I mean, I'm self-isolating in my basement, and I feel it because I can't get away from it. And I guess I can, but I'm choosing not to. The other tip I'm going to give you is to pay attention to your sleep these days. I follow a guy named Dr. Matthew Walker, and his research on sleep is the most up-to-date, and He has a lot to say about how good sleep, not just sleep, but good REM sleep is restorative. It helps your body feel rejuvenated when you wake up in the morning if you get a good sleep. And one of the key things to get a good sleep, the new research shows, is not to use your phone at least 2 hours before you go to bed. So on a good night, you should take your phone, leave it outside your bedroom, go into your bedroom, get one of those books, one of those beautiful books you have, just have a nightlight table and read and pass out that way. I find when I do that, I feel so much better in the morning. And it's hard, right? We're addicted. We're addicted to that phone and we take it in. We have our habits. But last night I was reading Stanley Fish's How to Write a Sentence and I passed out. Sure, I woke up at 4 going, what's going on? What's happening? Okay, I can live without the phone. And anyway, it's difficult, but you'll get there. That's the one thing I'm going to ask you to try to do. Don't get hooked up to the phone at night. It's just not a good thing at the end of the day. You'll feel so much better if you can get rid of the phone. And check out Matthew Walker. His book, Why We Sleep, is on Amazon, of course, and he's got a great TED Talk. I'll put up some information and links to what Bruce is up to and to Matthew Walker's book on Stratford Festival Reviews. That's one of my websites, Stratford Festival Reviews. You'll find this podcast there. And hey, if you enjoyed this one, check out any other one, particularly my podcast with Tony Award winner Bob Martin, another Canadian with success on Broadway. Coincidentally, his last play was at the Longacre. That was The Prom. Just check out Bob Martin and the Performers Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Check them all out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. My name's Keith Tomasek. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back next week, I promise.